So hello everybody to today's edition, to today's interview of our series CESI Talks. We're having this set of interviews with leading figures of the European Parliament, but also of the European Commission and also at member states level, with the ultimate goal to have a critical look at the EU, but also to see the positive sides of the EU and also to make our members and citizens in general aware of the importance of the upcoming election in 2024. And today I'm very pleased to have João Albuquerque. João, you excuse me, I hope it's correctly pronounced, a member of the European Parliament from Portugal and member of the S&D group. He's vice chair of the delegation for relations with the federal with Brazil. He's member of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs of the Committee on Fisheries, and quite interesting and important, maybe at the moment, probably not, but a member of the delegation to the EU-Russia Parliamentary Cooperation Committee. João, welcome.
Thank you very much, and you pronounced it very well, much better than I'm used to.
Much better than the last time, huh?
No, it's fine.
João, you were shadow rapporteur for the European Year of Skills. What are your expectations, knowing that we are in a world of digital and ecological transition? What do you expect from this European Year of Skills?
Well, let me start from the beginning. But the first thing that I noticed, well, besides thanking you for the invitation, of course, is that we are always struggling a little bit with the idea of these European years. As you know, they are announced by the President of the Commission, normally on the State of the Union, and then the Commission pressures the Parliament in order to have a quick legislative procedure in order to have the year starting in the beginning of the year in January. What we are trying to explain to the Commission is that this process, for example, does not work like that because there is very little time to prepare these European years, and we have seen this with the European Year of Youth. Despite the initiatives and despite the efforts that we have seen from member states and even from the Commission, the stakeholders that we have been talking to always complain that they have been very little involved in the process, very little heard, and that the initiatives were somehow recycled from other programs that the Commission already has. And we are seeing a little bit this on the proposal from the European Year of Skills. As you also know, we are in the middle of the trilogue negotiations with the Commission and the Council, and I think one of the things that we try to propose as a start is that the year starts already in the 9th of May, so that we have European years that correspond to the beginning of the Day of Europe, and that this allows us to continue. It's still not yet decided, and this is why the European Year of Skills is still in this process where it's still not completely launched. On the proposal itself, I think that the Commission put out a proposal that was very ambitious and that it was quite realistic in the sense that it was targeting mostly the needs that we are facing in our labor market. But this was also a bit of a flaw that I saw in the proposal. That is to say that skills are much more than just adapting the needs of academia or of the current labor market to the needs of the companies or to the needs of certain sectors of professions. So one thing that we tried to do in our report in the Parliament was to broaden the scope of this idea of skills, to make sure that it includes also lifelong training, that it includes other sets of skills that are related to soft skills, to citizenship education or peace education, that are much broader than just adequating these needs of the labor market, which is of course very important. I don't want you to get me wrong. I think it is important that we identify where there are shortages and that we try to adjust and to make sure that we have the right people and the competent people to do it. The second remark that I would like to make is that I don't want to rush myself, but the first indications that we have been receiving also from this current presidency is that there is a certain bias towards the idea that the Commission put forward regarding the attraction of third country workers. And they were somehow trying to push for focusing it more on Ukrainian distressed people and to somehow narrow a little bit the scope of reach that the Commission's proposal try to do. And this is something that for us, especially as socialists, is not at all a good sign. And we are continuing on fighting for the idea of the original proposal, that it is to attract third country workers, and most of all and most importantly, to make sure that they come with social protection and with the same rights and the same dignity in work as people that are already here.
Well, thank you also for the comments on soft skills and citizens education. This is something representing teachers here also at CESI, which is very close to our heart. As you said, on the one hand, there are the needs of the labor markets and the needs of a world of work in full transition. And on the other side, we also have to make sure that we don't forget who we are, where we come from, and when we think of artificial intelligence, for instance, what makes us different from machine learning. And
I couldn't agree more.
You're a very young MEP, and what is your general stance in why we should invest more in professional education and upskilling, and why is that so particularly important? I mean, you referred to it already indirectly for young people like you.
Well, my first remark is that I'm not as young as I would like to be anymore. But on what you just said regarding the proposal talks a lot about reskilling and upskilling. So upskilling as a way of people improving their knowledge, and reskilling as a way of shifting their competences or the current job that they are doing. I have to say that it's important that we create strategies for this, that we develop the mechanisms and the instruments, and professional training and vocational training, like you mentioned, plays an absolute and fundamental role on this set. But I don't think that this is a silver bullet. I think that we need to complement this with other measures and further discuss the organization of labor as a whole. I think this is something that somehow is missing. I don't think that this is the scope of the proposal, and this is why it's not there. I'm bringing this up because I think that as part of the discussion between progressive political parties and trade unions, I think this is something that we need to strengthen our cooperation, because this goes into the discussions, for example, of a 4-day week, for example, trying to improve the work-life balance, remote work. I think all of these discussions also come into this idea of what is happening with this digital transition, because I don't think that we can. I think that companies and neoliberal narrative tries to sell the idea that jobs are always going to continue to evolve and be replaced and come up somehow and somewhere. And I'm not entirely sure if this is the evolution that we are going to see. So I think we also need to understand and to discuss what is happening in up to some extent into a post-work society, where this can also play somehow a role, and how we can organize labor as a whole. But focusing on what you are saying, I think that this goes a lot into what we have been discussing for years, and maybe we have not yet reached a point where we can offer clear answers, which is there is still a very strong prejudice against vocational and professional education. And I think that we need to understand better not only how to organize the labor systems and the organization of labor in itself, but also the educational system, because we need to make sure that we don't see vocational training and professional training as a stigma and as a minor thing, which also goes in hand with the idea of how we value work. Because there has been this problem. I always give this example because I think it's very clarifying. During the pandemic, we have very clearly applauded and commended the people that were frontline workers, whether they were healthcare workers or people that were working in deliveries, for example. But we have not matched our commendation and our recognition of these professions with the proper not only wage and salary recognition, but also social recognition. So I think we need to put a very strong emphasis on this, and to make sure that we understand that the value of work in itself needs to be much better recognized in our society.
Yeah, we're also getting more and more, or becoming more and more aware, Australians, of the necessity to be much more part of active labor market policies, belong to those, may belong or have to belong, of course, the issues of skills and upskilling, and to offer much more support when it comes to the transition from education, let it be vet or let it be normal education, to the world of work, to the work. Something very, very different, João. I would say the European Parliament has been quite shaken now a couple of months ago by the so-called Qatar scandal. Now, there's always one danger, is that everybody overreacts and we have some kind of total transparency, which might, at a certain point, also lead to something totalitarian. This is always something, the fear we can have. At the same time, something must happen. I mean, a lot has happened, and particularly when we think of the upcoming European elections, we are a little bit worried that this might cast a very big shadow on the recognition or the value people give to the European Union and its institutions, especially when it comes to the European elections. What are your hopes? What are your fears? What should be done now in the aftermath of this scandal?
I share your concerns. I share your concerns on the negative impact that this can have, and the risk that we can face on by trying to tackle the situation, which is, let's face it and let's say it very clear, a very serious one and a very concerning one, that we somehow create also a stigma regarding people that have the privilege of doing what I am currently doing as a member of the European Parliament, but also in other public roles. I think that we cannot broom the dust under the rug. We cannot try to hide what happened, but I think we also have to face it that if the allegations that we are aware of are confirmed, it is not because of a lack of rules. I mean, it's a case where the rules were existing, and this was, if the allegations again are confirmed, this is clearly a case of a crime. So it's not something that was because of the lack of rules. Nonetheless, I think my group, which was particularly affected by these scandals because of the actions of individuals, took some courageous steps in order to increase transparency. And I think that we have to recognize the efforts that we are doing in order to make sure that the mechanisms and the rules are adapted in order to prevent such events in the future. And I think most of all, this has served as an awareness of things cannot continue as they were. So on this, I'm very proud of what the S&D group has done and has put forward as proposals. I do think I do share what you mentioned in the beginning, that we need to make sure that there are no populistic people taking profits out of this to throw mud on the political arena, and to make sure that we continue to have political representatives on a high standard and on a high ground, which is something that we all need to have in mind when we are passing by, because it's always a passage, not a permanence on this kind of positions.
João, thank you very much for these words, for this clarification also, and all the best to you, of course, also for this year and for the upcoming European elections. And we stay in touch with all different kind of dossiers. Much appreciate to work with you. And
thank you very much. It's a huge pleasure to be back, and hope to see you again.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.